This is a video devoted to anyone who is experiencing grief, loss, anyone who is in the process of experiencing a loved one with terminal illness, anyone who has experienced that in the past, who's kind of struggling to go through that, or maybe you know someone who is going through a situation of grief, or maybe their loved one is terminally ill, or maybe they're going through something that is surrounded with sickness and death, something that is just heavy on their heart. When I was 10 years old, the first time I experienced death was the death of my mother, and she was terminally ill. So she got cancer. She went through, I think she maybe had like one treatment of chemo, and then the cancer took her pretty quickly. The second time I experienced death was of my grandmother, which was 10 days after my mother. And my grandmother was a second mother to me. My mother was a businesswoman. She worked a lot, and my nan would look after me like all of the time. And my nan died 10 days after my mother died, and I didn't get a chance to see her, because the last time I seen her was before I went on holiday, and she went into hospital while I was on holiday, and she was so sick when I come back I wasn't able to see her. The next time I experienced death was my grandmother, who died a couple of years later. They both lived in my street. These were women that were incredibly close to me. And the next time I experienced death was my granddad, who died after a pretty severe amount of heart attacks. And we seen him die in hospital. We were there when he died. I heard him take his last breath, and it was a profoundly strange experience. But the one thing I learned from that experience particularly is that we don't want to surround people dying with fear. We don't want to surround people dying with fear. We don't want to surround people dying with, and this is hard to say, and I understand this, but we don't want to surround them with grief, in the sense that we want to give them the freedom to live without the burden of our suffering. Now, this can sound extreme. We're obviously going to suffer, and or at least we're going to grieve when we are aware that someone is sick and when someone is ill. But the thing to see is that the thing I want to encourage is an inner strength to be the light of peace, love, and joy in that person's life, so that they can transition in that vibration, because you will be inevitably the one who is there for them through this time. And we don't want to surround their deathbed. This can be metaphorically or it can be literally. We don't want to surround their deathbed with tears and sadness and depression, because looking back at my granddad, we were all numb and depressed and sad and looking down and not speaking and just scared. There's just the thing we don't address is dying. The craziest thing is that apart from being born, the most common thing that happens to people is they die. So why are we not addressing death? Why are we running from death? I spoke to my sister today, and she talked about how she's getting her will set and all these things. Sorry, we haven't got that far yet. But and we just spoke about how death is so avoided. No one wants to do their will. They're scared to address dying. No one wants to organise their affairs for after they die, because no one wants to address death. So anyway, the next time I experienced death was when my best friend died when I was 24 years old. And he was like my brother. He was a brother to me. And he's the only person who ever loved me at the darkest, who ever met me, loved me, and seen me for who I really was at the darkest time of my life. You see, this is a guy he was a visionary. He could see through everything. And he died, I mean, he wasn't even terminally ill when he died. He had cancer, obviously. Everyone seems to be dying of cancer these days. Cancer took him pretty quickly too, before we could even, at least as far as I was aware, identify that he was terminal. I don't know if they just didn't tell me, his parents, or if he didn't tell me, or if they didn't know, I don't know. But I didn't understand how serious it was, and it took him about 4 months after he was diagnosed. So, and the next time that I'm coming towards this is that my sister is now terminally ill, and this is the main reason I'm making this video, is because my sister's terminally ill, and I'm just reflecting on all the death of life and all the things I've experienced in my life in my short 27 years, and just reflecting on how do I want to experience this? How do I want to experience this? Because it's a very different experience, even though it's the same. Because I'm not the same person that I was when I experienced all these other, what I call transcendence days. And I just want to share a message just to give anyone watching, the direction or some understanding of how to manage these situations, because it's not easy. And I want to say the first thing, if you know someone who's died, and you'll resonate with this if you're going through grief right now, is that the one thing you need to do, people think, well, if I've never experienced death before, I don't know how to be there for someone who's going through this or something like that. You don't need wisdom. You don't need a single bit of advice. You just need to actually care that someone is going through that process. It's the only thing you need to do. You just care that the person's going through that process. Now, it requires emotional intelligence. Two of my best friends, when I had 3 best friends, when one of them died, my 2 other best friends, they didn't even call me. They didn't message me. I think, to be honest, it was a lack of care and a lack of consideration, just generally speaking, because it is a bit mind-blowing when the 2 people who aren't your family that you're closest to don't call you when someone that you love dies. It's a shock. It really is a shock. So just care. All you have to do is call them and just say, how are you feeling? How is it going? And just care. And if you're going through a process of grief, the thing you have to do is grieve. You can't resist the grief. People are scared of grieving because they don't want to feel both their own fear of death, plus there's blame, shame, regret, and guilt to some degree are revolving around the grief. If you could grieve without any resistance to the grief, grieving is a natural process. Grieving is an outpouring of love and respect and appreciation to the life that you shared with that person. So whether you're going through a breakup, whether you're going through a death of a family, a loved one, you need to grieve. Grieving is the best thing you can do. The reason that we go through this process of grief is not because it's suffering. It's not a suffering process. It's a process of genuine outpouring of love. It's a respect to the life of the individual, and it's a process that is, it's an outpouring of love for the person that we've lost. And sometimes this won't hit us as hard with certain people. Sometimes we can come to an acceptance of someone's death quicker than others, so we shouldn't feel guilty for that either. When my mother died, I cried when I heard the news, but I felt guilty. I was 10 years old and I felt guilty for feeling like I kind of wanted her to die. Sounds fucked up, but it was like she was suffering so bad that I had this sense of like, and the whole scene of hospitals and her sick and crying in pain, like thinking she's going to just die on the spot. You get to a stage where you're a young kid and you kind of want her to die because you don't see her getting better, and it's just like, and the whole scene is just, it's just, you're not enjoying it. You know what I mean? So it's like, you kind of want her to be out of her suffering. And I felt guilty for that for a long time. So when she did die, I grieved, but the grieving for me was smooth. It was smooth transition. If anything, it was worse when I grew older, and was reflecting. So you don't feel guilty is what I want to say. If you've gone through this, don't feel guilty for feeling how I felt, because it's not something to feel guilty about. It's not something to feel guilty about. To want someone's suffering to end is not something to feel ashamed of. So we don't want to feel ashamed in the process of grief. We don't want to feel guilty. We don't want to feel anything like that. We just want to be able to process. Cry. If there's reason to cry, cry. If something makes you cry, cry. You just need to cry it. Let it all pour out of you. Don't resist it. Grieving is a beautiful process. When it's done without resistance, it's kind of like those tears that you've had where you don't know whether you're laughing or crying. It's just outpouring, you see? So it's important to see this. And so my battery just died right at the end of that, so we'll leave it there for today. If anyone has any questions, I have a free community. The link's in the description if you want to check that out. I guide people through this process and the process of our own death every single week. If that's something you're interested in, I'm currently in. I'm going to carry on enjoying my little holiday in Zunte. I will see you soon, everyone. Take care. Bye.